There is a verse, Proverbs, that banks have never quoted to you. Not once. Not in the loan agreement. Not in the fine print. Not when the banker smiled and said, "Congratulations, you're approved," because if they did quote it, you might not sign. Proverbs 22:7 says this, "The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender." Slave. That is not soft language. That is not decorative poetry. It is a financial diagnosis, written 3,000 years ago, that describes exactly what millions of Americans are living right now. And here is what we need to ask. If God warned us this clearly, why did the world train us to ignore it? Stay with us, because what we are about to share is not just financial advice. This is spiritual discernment about a system that profits from your pressure. You did not stumble into debt by accident. The system was designed before you walked in. The interest rate was calculated. The minimum payment was engineered. The approval process was streamlined so that you would say yes quickly before you had time to think. That is not conspiracy. That is business. But for a believer, business that profits from bondage is worth examining. Think about it. When you carry debt, someone else owns a piece of your future. Your paycheck arrives, and before you touch it, a portion is already assigned, already spoken for. A portion you cannot freely steward before God. That is what Solomon meant. The borrower is slave to the lender, not in chains, not locked in a room, but obligated, committed, bound. And the enemy loves anything that keeps God's people too obligated, too pressured, and too exhausted to obey freely. When you sit down at that loan table, they show you numbers. Monthly payment, affordable, interest rate, competitive, term, manageable. What they do not show you is the full picture. They do not show you that a 30-year mortgage at 6% can cost you far more than the price printed on the listing, before the house is truly yours. They do not show you that a minimum payment on a credit card is calculated specifically to keep you paying as long as possible. They do not show you that the average American household carries over $10,000 in credit card debt and is still paying interest on money spent years ago on things that no longer exist. The vacation is over. The furniture is worn. The dinner was eaten. But the debt remains. You are still paying for a moment that is gone. That is the trap. And Solomon saw it. We need to stop right here for a moment. Because if you are carrying debt right now, we are not here to add weight to what is already heavy. Debt is not a sin. Borrowing is not a moral failure. And if you are in a hard season financially, God is not sitting in heaven disappointed in you. He sees you. He knows the job loss, the medical bill, the season where the income did not match the expenses, no matter how hard you tried. But debt becomes dangerous when it becomes normal, when it becomes permanent, when it stops being questioned. That is when it shifts from a season into a system. And that is when God's word steps in, not to shame you, but to show you a different way. God's word does not shame you for where you are. It shows you where to walk from here. That is the difference between religion and relationship. Religion says you should not be here. Relationship says, let me show you the way out. Here is what Solomon was really teaching. Debt is not just a financial condition. It is a positional one. When you owe, you cannot freely give. When you owe, you cannot freely go. When you owe, decisions that should be yours get made for you by the weight of what you carry. God's picture of blessing was never a people permanently buried under debt. It was a people free enough to give, free enough to lend, free enough to move, and free enough to obey when he called. Deuteronomy 28 paints that picture. A people walking in provision, not paralyzed by obligation. Not wealthy for pride, free for purpose. A person with no financial chains can respond to God quickly. They can give when prompted. They can move when directed. They can say yes to what God opens without calculating whether the debt payment will still clear. That kind of freedom does not happen by accident. It requires intention, and it requires seeing the system for what it is before it sees you first. Let us slow down for just a moment. Take a breath. If you have been listening to this and feeling it in your chest, that weight is real, that tension is real, and the desire to be free from it is not greed. It is a God-given longing for what He always intended for you. Financial bondage is not your destiny. It is your current address, and those are two very different things. Your current address can change, but not if you keep living there like it is permanent. Financial deliverance is not always a moment where debt disappears overnight. God can move that way. He has. But most of the time, deliverance begins somewhere quieter. It begins the moment you stop seeing debt as normal and start seeing it as something to come out of. It looks like a budget that feels like a prayer, a decision that feels like worship, a sacrifice that feels like surrender. Because here is what we have seen. The moment a person starts treating their finances as a spiritual matter, and not just a math problem, something shifts. Not just in the numbers, in them. They stop buying to feel better and start trusting God to fill what spending was trying to fix. They stop avoiding the bank statements and start facing reality with God beside them. They stop saying, "I'll deal with it later," and start saying, "Lord, show me what to do now." That shift is deliverance, long before the final payment clears. So what does Proverbs 22:7 actually call you to do? Not guilt, not panic, not comparison to someone else's story. It calls you to awareness. Then it calls you to movement. Here is where movement begins. Write it down. Every balance, every interest rate, every payment. Stop letting the full number live in the shadows. Name it, face it, bring it before God. Cut one leak, one subscription, one habit, one automatic charge you forgot was even running. That money has a better assignment. Attack one balance, not all of them. One. Pick one and go after it with intention. And refuse one new debt. Draw one line. Say no to one thing that would have previously gone on the card. Write it down. Cut one leak. Attack one balance. Refuse one new debt. That is more than a financial plan. It is an act of faith. The God who parted the Red Sea is not intimidated by your interest rate, but He does ask you to move. Before you go, we want to ask you one honest question. Where are you right now? Comment one word below. Trapped, fighting, or free? If you are trapped, you are not alone. This is where awareness begins. If you are fighting, keep going. Every right decision is breaking a chain. If you are free, your testimony may become someone else's courage tonight. Drop your word in the comments. And if this video opened something for you, share it with someone who needs to see it. The banks will not quote Proverbs 22:7 to you, but God already did. 3,000 years ago, He told you exactly what debt does to a person, exactly what it costs, and exactly who benefits when you never ask questions. Financial bondage is not your destiny. It is your current address. Walk toward freedom. One decision, one obedient step, starting now.